All right, so we have our domain and range notes. This is domain and range 101. You're gonna skip a line and then write down domain. And exactly what I'm writing here is the exact same notebook. So if I skip a line, skip the line with me. So for domain, this is going to be basically your X values. We also call them the input. For the range, this is going to be the Y values, also known as your output. You can also describe them as independent and dependent. And then dependent. Now, for the domain, the X values, we'll talk about the X line, right, the X axis, and then the Y value is the Y axis. So just go ahead and copy that. Now, you're going to skip, after the word range, skip 2 lines. We're going to talk about discrete versus continuous. Let me zoom in so y'all can see better. All right, there you go. So now for a discrete graph versus a continuous graph, what is the difference? A discrete graph is going to look like we have points. So go ahead and put some points around here, some dark shaded points. It could be on the origin, it could be on the y-axis, it could even be on the x-axis. This is what a discrete graph looks like. So notice how after I wrote discrete versus continuous, all right, I skipped a line, and then I put 3 lines going down, 3 lines going this way, just in case you're wondering. So I should have put pause there actually. Now for continuous, the continuous looks like a line. So go ahead, let's just draw like a little loop, loop-de-loop. Now what I want to do is put an arrow facing down this direction, arrow facing up that direction. All right, now is this crooked? Yes, all right. My mistake, all right, no one's perfect. I mean, you're not perfect, you're here in summer school, all right? It's kind of the way it works. So just by looking at this, you should be able to tell me what's discrete and what's continuous. So for example, we have this little activity we're about to do. This is a discrete graph because it has points. This is a continuous graph because it's a line. Now this one has more squigglies, but this is a smooth line right here. That's what we're talking about. So make sure you have that down. All right, now we're going to talk about the answer formats. This is where a lot of people get lost here, right? And there's kind of a lot we have to talk about. Now, for discrete, it's actually easy. This is actually just a set of data. A set of data or numbers, right? So for like your domain, put D right here. The domain is going to be some type of a set. So put some little braces, put some little blank spaces right here, and then put some more braces. That's just the basic of what our answer is going to look like. It's going to be a number, comma, right? Now the range, same thing. You're just going to put some braces, space, space, space. All right. So let me show you what I mean by that. All right. So go ahead and finish copying that down. Let me zoom out a little bit. Oh, a little sand is falling. All right. Push pause if you need to. All right, so for example, all right, now look at this, all right, graph number 1. I know it doesn't say number 1, but it's supposed to say number 1, it didn't print. This is a discrete graph, which means my answers, if I were to look at my answer choices, all right, I have an answer choice that looks like this. Now, you do have some braces, but this is not a set of data. This is a set of data, all right, can you see the difference? All right, this is the inequalities, but this is the actual numbers. So when you talk about a discrete, when I see this type of a graph, your answers should not have any inequality symbols. It should just be numbers. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So let me break down graph number 1, and I'm gonna explain what to do here with this activity in a second. But each one of these on the X line, okay, this is my domain. There's a dot on the -10. So that would be one of my numbers here. If I move on the -9, that's supposed to be a -9, and -8, there's no dots. So that is not part of the answer. I'm only looking at the X line. So look, I'm going to go here, what number is that, -4? I think it's a -4. There's a dot on -4, so guess what? I'm going to write that here. You're going to keep going. Now notice how this line, all right, a lot of people get confused. This is my X values. and I have this dot right here. It is on the 0. This is the middle. So the 0 would go here. And then you would just keep going on. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 5 dots. 1, 2, 3. But watch this. This dot is stacked on top of this dot. So I'm only going to write down this number. What is that? 3? You're only going to write it down one more time. So there should be 4 spaces for this one right here. All right. So look at this. All right. I got these 2 answer choices in the activity. We said -10 and 0 is one of them. Now look. All right. If I pay attention, remember I said there's 1, 2, 3, and these are stacking, so there's only going to be 4 numbers. So automatically, I know that this is the answer because there's 4 numbers. This one has 5 numbers. -10, -2, 0, 5, 7. That's not it. It has to be this one. All right. Now let me double check. Let me make sure the range is good here. So the range, it says -6. So now we're going to look at the y numbers. That's my y numbers. So -6 has a dot on it. Yes. What about -2? Let's move up. Look, -2 has 2 dots, but you only need to write it down one time. You're not going to double -2 here. Don't waste your time doing that. Now let's go to number 5. Does the 5 on the y have a dot? Look, it's right there. That's my 5. And then you have the number 7. Is there a dot there? Yeah. There's no dots on number 8. There's no dots on number 9. There's no dots on 10. So this would be the correct answer, F. So for number 1, graph 1, the answer is F. Now, the way I want you to write that down on your notebook, I actually want you to go to the next page after the domain range notes, and I want you to put practice. All right, and then graph 1, that's the one we just did. The answer is F, all right? So this is going to be 1, this is going to be 2. I'll help you number it when I get there. So this graph 1, the answer was the F. So graph 1 is F. All right, and then you're going to have a total of 8 graphs. So we'll do graph number 2 next. Actually, we'll do a harder one because there's a harder version. Graph number 3. That one's probably going to be good. Graph number 3. All right. So let's go back here. Let's go back to our notes. So now continuous. Now, the answer format, what's the answer going to look like here? On this one, you're going to have your inequalities. So this one, we're going to put the domain. Is going to have a number. It's going to have this symbol with the X, this symbol, and then a number. All right. Now, these blank spaces. For the domain, I want you to think about it this way. This is going to be the left, so put L for left. And this is going to be the right side. So from the left side, going to the right side. All right. Now, for the range, I'm going to skip a space here just to kind of do that. All right. For the range, we're going to go from the bottom, put a B, put your symbol, put a Y right there, put your symbol, less than, it's always going to be like this. And then put a T for top. Okay. So for the domain, you have the X in the middle, left and right side. For the range, you have the Y in the middle, bottom to top side. All right, and I'll explain this in a second. Now, there's some extra notes we need. There's a reason we have this space. For the continuous side, the domain. All right, if you see an arrow going to the left or going down. All right. Actually, you know what? My bad. Let me just say left. If the arrow's going to the left, that means negative infinity. If you see an arrow going to the right, that means positive infinity. And then for range, if there's an arrow going down, for the bottom part, that's negative infinity. And for the top, sorry, this is going up. It's positive infinity. I'll explain these arrows in a little bit. Okay, I'll explain the arrows in a little bit. All right. Now, we've still got some stuff to talk about, all right? There's a couple symbols we're going to see. We're going to see some circles. If you see a circle, that means that you do not put a line under your symbols. If you see a dot, and this doesn't matter for domain and range. It doesn't matter. All right? You're going to put lines. All right, I'm going to explain this in a second. It'll make sense once you kind of see the work and the notes at the same time, because this is very confusing right now, okay? I know you're lost. I'll explain when we get to there. Okay. So now, this is graph A1. We already did that. Graph 2. All right, now let's move on to graph 3. All right. So now graph 3. Let's talk about domain and range. So my domain for graph number 3. Remember, there's supposed to be a 3 there. I don't know why it's not there. All right. So X for domain. And what's my left side? Look at the left side. Does my left side have an arrow? That's what I'm talking about with these notes. There is no arrow on the left side, so that means that this is going to be a number. But look, pay attention. What type of circle is that? That is an open circle, which means there should not be a line under here. All right, no line. So my answer for graph number 3, I'm going to write it down here. I'm going to have the domain is -9. All right, y'all see that? The x value for where the circle is -9 less than x. So remember, you always have this format. Now look at this side. On this side, is there an arrow going to the right? Yes, there's an arrow going to the right. So that's positive infinity. All right. Now there's going to be a switch here. There's a reason that this is one of the hardest ones. But let's just leave it like that for right now. That's my domain. Okay. My range, remember, my range starts in the bottom. So let's look at the bottom part of the graph. The bottom part of the graph is this part. All right, that's my lowest point. Is there an arrow there? No. This stops at -9. So for my range, -9 less than y. Now again, this is an open circle, so it does not get a symbol. Now the highest part is this line right here. Y'all see how the graph goes from here all the way to right here. So where's that? That's going to be at the number 3. Okay. Now, this line on the top, there's a dot there. The highest part has a dot. Sorry about the focus. So that means if I have a dot, I need to have a line under that symbol. Okay. Line under there. All right, so now as I'm looking for my stuff, now, look, this one right here, it almost makes sense. Look, I have that -9. Well, no, I have a 9 positive, a -9. I have a 3. Notice how it doesn't match because this one doesn't have a line. This one does have a line. All right, so let me keep looking. Let me explain what's going on. All right. So now, the range, look, I have -9 less than with no line, y, less than or equal to 3. That's good. And over here on this side, all of a sudden you're like, well, Mr. S, you're like, teacher, this does not match. What's going on? All right, well, in math, guys, we don't like to write infinities. All right, we're kind of lazy. We just want the x and the number, but we always want the x to come first. So if you notice, if I put this x first, this symbol has to be going towards the x. It has to be eating the x number out. And then you have the -9. So there was kind of a flip because we don't want to do that. It's kind of weird, I know. Is there other ways to explain it? Yes. But we're out of time. All right? Trust me. Just raise your hand, ask your teacher for help whenever you see infinities because there are going to be some types of a switch. All right? So that was graph number 3. So remember, that's 1, 2, 3. So let's go to our thing. And the answer to graph number 3 was B. All right, that's pretty much everything in a nutshell. All right, so this is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. All right, write that down on the second page. All of them, go down, and then try to find out what the symbols are going to be. So good luck. Raise your hand if you need help.